13, and then 14, and then 15, and 16? Yeah, now it's 16. So now it's just kind of like a habit, right? But what I really find fascinating is that there are a lot of seminars that I give. You guys know I'm speaking anywhere from 10 to 20 times a month. There's a lot of seminars I give, but this one is the one of the year where I have the least precognitive information, the least amount of support from guides in advance, so I don't have a really good idea of what's going to happen for the next 3 hours. And over all of these years, I've kind of adjusted to it, but I do still find it a little tiny bit intimidating. And I was okay until 5 minutes before I walked out of the house this morning, and my supportive son says to me, like, "Mom, did you ever have a time when you were standing there in a seminar and, like, nothing came through?" I was like, let me think about that. So I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I'm like, I think I did have that happen a couple of times. And he's like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like, what do I do? So now he took me from just being happy to meander out of the room, knowing the thing is going to happen for 3 hours and I'm good, to thinking. I got into Karen's head and everything started to crash. So I had to run around and look for a men's deodorant, right? Because women's deodorant is not strong enough for a circumstance like this. So anyway, if you smell men's deodorant on me, I swear it's not me. It was just I was hugging the guys today, right? All right. So now I'm good. So what I do if I want to channel and I'm not really getting anything yet, is I'll turn my attention to something else and just really kind of hope that they come through. And that's what I'm hoping for today. That's what I'm really hoping for today. I am grateful to Derek. He got a nice accolade from Stryker. But I am very grateful to him for participating so beautifully in this seminar each year. He puts a lot of effort into it, and he's like a locked box, because when he gets the special word of the year, people start to stalk him, they harass him, they bribe him, they do all sorts of things. They hide his guitar, and he will not reveal what the theme is to anyone. He just goes about his business. But the other reason that I'm grateful to him is because if it weren't for him, I wouldn't get anything before I arrived. And that would make me feel very uncomfortable. So at least I have a theme for you. And then what usually winds up happening in this year is no different than any other year, is about 2 days before we arrive, the guides will start to give me hints of different things that I'll speak about. Not in depth, but usually because I have to prepare something for you. And in preparation, I'll get a little bit of an indication of what the energy of this year will be like. So that helps me to be a little bit more at ease. But one of the things that's fascinating to me is that last year, at the end of the 2015 seminar, there was stuff coming through that it was coming through so fast, so rapidly. The content of last year's presentation is so dense. When I was finished with that seminar, I remember for the first time leaving and saying, I've got nothing. I've got nothing. There is nothing left to say. I just said the last of it. Over all of these years, 6 years, 7 years that I've been doing this, that's it, we're done. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to have to cancel the year 2016 seminar because there's nothing left. And I felt like that for days, and then I felt like that for weeks, and then I felt like that for like a month. I'm like, there's really nothing. And then I started to get back into that groove of doing my normal monthly, weekly seminars, and stuff's coming through. I have to tell you, if you're ever surprised by anything that you hear, can you imagine how it makes me feel? Because I'm not pre-thinking it. good idea. I want to tell people this. And it comes and it comes and it comes and it never ends. So in this year, when I really was curious, like, what is there left to say? What is left? What is left? I get the word for Derek. I gave him the least amount of notice this year ever, right? Sorry.
Okay.
So sorry. You pulled it off. Least amount of notice, and I got it. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. So this is a unique year. This is a special year, and this is an exciting year. And that makes me really happy because if anyone was here, I think it was the 2014 seminar, but it might have been the 2013. I don't have a great memory for it. I think it was 14. In the 2014 seminar, it was the first time ever during one of these that the guy said something a little bit foreboding, and it sounded a little bit ominous. And I remember how people reacted to that. It wasn't totally ominous, but it was like, listen, here's the stuff that's going to help you have the greatest year and the greatest life. And this year, more than ever, if you are unable to try to implement that or focus on it or awaken toward it, the stuff that's not working, the stuff that's a little bit challenging, is going to get harder. But the good news is that the other stuff is going to get easier and better and brighter and lighter. And that one tiny foreboding thing, I had so many emails and sessions for all the way through September that year because people were like, gosh, I don't know if I can do it. I listened, I got it, I understand the instructions, but am I doing it? Can you tell me if I'm doing it? Because they were afraid of life getting a little bit more difficult. And I don't really see that that's what happened. What does happen, and it's still true to this day, is if you have a piece of information that you can benefit from by implementing it in your life, if you're going to put that on hold and not pay any attention to it and just ignore it for whatever reasons, it's going to come back and start to tap at you. And then it's going to get a little louder, and then it's going to be a bit of a pound, and then it's going to become more abrasive and more friction. Because in this life, we're wanting to evolve, we're wanting to grow, we want to discover things that we have forgotten. We want to realize things that we haven't yet realized in this earth life. So it's important that that stuff that's starting to bubble up, that's starting to come to a surface, that we pay attention to it. It's important that we implement the good ideas that we become familiar with. It's a good idea to stay conscious of ideas and thoughts when they come to us so that we're aware of what it is that we're wanting to focus on. And the reason I'm reminding you about that particular theme of that other year is not to be foreboding, but just to remind you of two things. Number one, we're all here together to grow. We're all here to become closer and closer to the vibration of love. We're all given opportunities to meet that goal over and over and over again. The universe is always knocking at our door, asking us to awaken, to discover, and to learn more. But the other part that's good to remember is that even though each of these seminars is thematic and specific to a changing energy of that particular year, all of the information that we talk about is really timeless. And if you are stuck on something in particular, you can listen to the content of those previous years again and implement things that you might have overlooked or kind of strengthen some of those things that you forgot. Life comes at us very, very quickly. There's always new information, there's always new insights, there's always new things to pay attention to. But when you're wanting to redirect the course, if you've gone a little bit askew from where you want to be, just listen to the content of that information. What I've come to realize after doing this for as many years as I have been, is that the content is reading almost as as though it's a book about the path to enlightenment. And enlightenment is the equivalent of happiness. Being awake and being aware is what makes us feel more happy. So when you're thinking about different things that can make you happier, you're awakening. You're bringing more soul into your life. You're living more like the eternal soul that you are, rather than living like a human that picked up a lot of baggage and encumbrances along the way. So you aren't stuck now if you weren't at any of those previous seminars. And it doesn't mean that there's not valuable information for you to review or to implement from this point on. But it's never too late. One of the most fascinating parts about what I get to do for a living is that people will come to me and show me a book or a quote or a speaker or an idea or a movement, either from someone that's out there on the inspirational circuit today, or someone that said something in particular or had a philosophy 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. And when you look at those different pieces of information, how much they're in alignment with each other is fascinating. It's mind-blowing. So when I began this in my life, in those first 2 years when I was really learning how to get rid of my human stuff, from those 2 years on, I decided not to read anybody else's work, listen to any other speaker, attend any other particular idea, speaker, philosophy, or anything like that, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be regurgitating something that I was exposed to during this lifetime. Then I wouldn't know with confidence that my channel was clear, that I was aligning with the river of universal knowledge. And it's worked out well, because the more I do this, the more I get to witness how everything that comes through me has been discussed over the last how many hundreds or thousands of years of recorded history. It's the same stuff. I'm tapping into the same river of universal wisdom that people over all of time have tapped into. One of the reasons why, when you hear something in particular that resonates with you, one of the reasons why it makes you feel good is because it's truth. And oftentimes it's very counter to something that you've heard on earth. We're not really indoctrinated as humans into always looking at the bright side, the sunny side, seeing the world as abundant and free and with unlimited possibilities. We're more indoctrinated into being human with a lot of warnings and a lot of fear. And you'll hear this with parents. They'll say, well, I just want you to, you got to toughen up, because life is not that easy. You got to get stronger. You got to get tougher. You're going to get beaten down a lot, and you have to be prepared to brush this off and stand back up. But even if the ending message sounds a little positive, the underlying message is that life is really quite uncomfortable. And it's up to you and you alone to figure out how to get through it as best as possible. And that's the best anyone can expect, and that's the best anyone can do. I know it's changing, and there's an interesting thing that I noticed in 2015 for me, and I hope a lot of you are noticing this as well. But in 2015, I started to realize that ever since I have begun to change and to increase my vibrational energy and to change my outlook and my focus and my thoughts and my being and my actions, changing everything about me to become more soulful and more connected to the vibration of love, I become a different magnetic energy to the world around me. So over time, my external experience has changed incredibly to match what I have brought from the inside of me outwardly. And so this past year is the first time I've ever noticed that I don't even see the same amount of misery outside of me that I used to see. It's a little weird because I'm beginning to feel like I'm starting to climb up into some kind of a tower, and I'm insulated from harm and negativity and awfulness and evil because it just doesn't come into my life. So I'm like, I think that the world has gotten so much better, probably even better than it actually has, because that's what's coming into my physical space. And it did occur to me the other day, here's a great parallel. This is what occurred to me. I feel like one of those, this is funny, okay, I think it's funny, but I feel like one of those people who kind of like grew up not that rich, you know, a little on the poor side, right? And all of a sudden I came into like a ton of money, okay? Now I'm living the life, right? And I got everything I want. I got everything I want. Total freedom, total happiness. I'm just living there. And I've been living there so long now that I forget what it's like to be hungry. I forget what it's like to be sad. I forget what it's like to be afraid. I forget. And someone will come up to me and say something about, you know, I think they're going to turn my lights off. And I'm like, why would anyone turn your lights off? I don't get that. Why would anyone turn off your lights? And that's a little bit how I feel now. I'm going to say in my head, why would anyone turn off your lights? But from a perspective of energy and creating reality, like what could possibly be happening in your life that would make that company come in and go snip and just cut off your power? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what it was like to create a life of chaos. And luckily I stayed very, very connected to that memory. But it's an interesting process in this past year to see how much more separate I am from that reality. And for you, I think that's good news. Number one, the good news is I do remember, so I can help you out. I can identify with you. That's really good news. But the better news is that if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's the best news. I'm not sitting here. I'm not standing here to brag, because it's not about bragging. It's to show you that anyone can achieve this state of happiness. And that's what I want for every person in this room. That's what I want for every person, that every person in this room knows. I want everyone to achieve this state, because this is the pathway to peace. Not only peace for you, but peace for the world. When everyone achieves this state, there is no more chaos. There is no more disruption. There is no more destruction. There's only construction and building and creating and cooperation. So that's one of the reasons, the main reason why I do what it is that I do for a living, because that's where I want to see the world. And I'm not the only one doing it. I'm very grateful that there are more and more people that are channeling these same messages and same ideas, to the point that it's hitting a new level, a new peak that I've never seen in my lifetime. Has anyone else ever seen that in your lifetime? How many people are out there talking about things that are inspirational, talking about energy, talking about freedom, talking about happiness, talking about harmony with the animal community, the plant community, the planet, harmony with oneself, self-love. If you look at what's popping up around you, you're going to see spiritual centers, non-denominational spiritual centers popping up, yoga studios, Reiki places, what you're seeing, places to meditate, retreats. That's what's popping up. And they're popping up so much because there's more people that are understanding the benefit that we can get from yoga, from putting our thinking self aside for a moment, from quieting our minds, from being in harmony with nature, from changing our perspective, from getting out of the places where we are and moving into the places that we want to be. So I'm not the only one to give you the evidence of how the world is changing. All you have to do is look outside of yourself. Look out the window. Listen to what people are focusing on. Listen to what people are doing. And so that brings me to what the theme for today is. You guys are ready? Yeah. You want me to write it? Yeah. I'll write it? All right, now I get to see if the markers work. Here's the one word that Derek got. Can everybody see the board? All right, here we go. Magic. 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 Wow. That, to me, is the best theme word I've heard in all of the years of doing this. Every other word that came through, it had a little bit of a, pay attention to this, you guys, come on, don't get stuck in this, and a little bit of, here's where you can go, here's where you can go. But this one, magic, 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 magic. That, to me, it's one of my favorite words. There's one client, I can see she's not here yet, but I was doing a session at her house once, and I was in her living room, and there was this beautiful copperish stick or so, and on the end of it was a star, and in the middle of the star was a crystal, just a white crystal. And hanging from each point on the star was just a little white bead or clear bead. And I was looking at that thing and looking at it and looking at it. I swear I felt like I was 6 years old, right, in a candy store, and I saw the bazooka. And I had no money. I had no money. And I'm looking at that thing, wishing I just had the money, the way to get that thing. And so finally I just made a nice comment about how much I liked it. So if you knew this client, and a lot of you do, you know exactly what happens next. Grace. So Grace, you knew it was Grace. You knew. Of course it was Grace, right? A lot of you here knew it would be Grace. So Grace goes over, she goes into the kitchen, she grabs a chair, she comes back in, she puts the chair there, she stands on the chair, she reaches up, she takes the thing down off the wall, she's like, here. I'm like, oh, cool, wow, this is so cool. It's a magic wand. It's a magic wand. And I was so excited. And I'm like, you sure? You know that this is a magic wand? I mean, how could you give it up, you know? And she's like, everything's so cluttered. I have so much stuff. Just please take it. You seem to care about it more than I do. So I'd rather it go to you. And so I brought my magic wand home. And my magic wand now, there's a lot of people that know Grace. They know this is a true story. So now my magic wand hangs in my den, but it's not hanging where I can't touch it. It's hanging where I can touch it and use it anytime I feel like touching it and using it, you know? And it gets touched and played with because that's what I should do with a magic wand, is play with it. And every now and then, if I'm doing a session with somebody and I kind of like, maybe I'm not able to interpret the answer that I'm getting for a client, right? And I'm like, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. And I'm thinking, if I'm pacing in my house, let me just go touch my magic wand. I know it's silly, but every now and then it just gives me that extra bit of like jazzed feeling. And it's probably just that going to my magic wand puts me in a zone, and I touch the wand, and I'm in the zone, so I got myself out of the way so I could get the answer. But it works. So I know that magic works. I know that magic works. And another thing I realized in this past year, there's been something I've been saying on occasion with clients that I hadn't said previously. And if I'm not saying it, I'm often thinking it, and I didn't realize how much it was leading me up to the theme of this year, because I didn't know what the theme of this year was. But I started to say, at least in my head, like one of the interesting things about doing what I do for a living is that when I meet somebody, I can sense who they are as an eternal being. I can sense who they are as a soul. I can get their past lives. I can get why they're here today. I can also get what's encumbering them, what's preventing them from being the shining star that they are. So I get all this stuff. And sometimes I get, not for you, Ellen, of course, but sometimes I get, she doesn't mind me saying her because she knows that it's not true for her. But sometimes I get, oh my gosh, the human and the soul are so separate from each other because of the stuff that happened that was really crummy for this person, right? And I just sit there and I'm like, I don't know how to tell this person the truth about her. How do I make her know that all of this, I was going to curse, all of this stuff that she's holding on to is false. How do I make her understand this? I can say it, but is she going to take it in? Is it going to knock down her walls? And then I realized, you know what? Maybe if I just change the batteries in my magic wand, I can use my wand on her and let this transfer from me to her. And it to me was like so interesting. Like I started thinking about changing the batteries in my magic wand to help people see themselves as I know them to be. So magic is the pathway for you to not only know the truth about why we're here, but magic is the pathway for you to know the truth about yourself. And the more you know the truth about yourself, the beautiful truth about yourself, the more you're going to have a happy life. The more you have a happy life, the more you are creating a happy life for everyone that comes into contact with you, and everyone that comes into contact with the people who come into contact with you. Your energy is different. Your perspective is different. Your reality is different. The ripples that you put into the water are different. And so that's what I love about magic. It's contagious. Being around people that feel good makes you feel good. And the more you are that for yourself, the more you become the catalyst to be that for other people. And that's what magic is about. The magic is about remembering that magic does exist. And remembering that if you choose to focus on the magic of life, then that's what your life is going to become. And you have a partner in the universe to tell you when you're getting too close to a hot spot. Thank you for the timing. I'm not going to fall off the edge. Okay. So how does everybody like the theme? Good here? It's certainly better than the bad stuff is going to get worse, right? So I'll take it. So now we know what the theme is. What do we do with that theme? How do we align with the increasing energy of magic? How do we make that a part of our day-to-day partnership so that we can implement it in our lives? So in addition to doing the things that it is that we do to help get rid of stuff, to use affirmations to think more positively, to reimagine the past of this lifetime in a different way, give it a different story, and implement the benefits of the struggles that we've had. In addition to doing all of that, this is the year that you really want to start to let magic be a part of your life. And obviously, I'm not talking about we should all get on a flight and go to Las Vegas and go see whatever magician is there, but that's kind of cool too. I mean, I love when I get so brought into a magic trick that I honestly can't figure out if it was a trick or if it was real. That's the whole goal. Is it a trick or is it real? The nice thing is that a lot of the things that we think are magic are real, right? How many times have you in your lifetime been kind of down where things don't seem to be going your way? You could even be getting to almost a rock bottom, or even just an awful day or an awful week or an awful month. And then something magic happens. Something that's so brilliant or out of place or unexpected that it takes you out of your feeling of being repressed or depleted, and it makes you pop and feel hope. It makes you realize that there's more to this life than we may suppose. It makes you imagine. I wrote about this in one of my monthly essays, so some of you might be familiar with the story, for those of you who read my monthly essays. But I'll give you an example of magic and how it shows itself when you're least expecting something, and to show you how real magic can be. But as most of you in the room know, my opening for being able to do what it is that I do came on 9/11, 2001. I was out for a run that morning, and when I got back from my run and I was ready to walk into my house, I experienced what was happening at the World Trade Center as it was unfolding. Being an hour from there, obviously I didn't have any physical means to have any knowledge of what was going on. And in the aftermath, I came away from that experience with a sense of hope that I think a lot of people didn't have that day, understandably. But to have my consciousness leave my body allowed me to know for the first time that there is a lot more to life than we may suppose. How can my consciousness, how can my thought energy be in two places at the same time? Obviously, I'm not finite. And since I've always been thinking in terms of more math and science, I like proof. I'm not one of those airy-fairy people, regardless of what you just heard. Discard the wand story for a moment. I'm not one of those airy-fairy people, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course. I like facts. I've brought myself to where I am in being a conduit for you, factually, scientifically. So to find out for real, in a way that could never be refuted, that my thought energy, is it sewn into my body, made me know I am not finite. If I'm not finite, you're not finite. If we're not finite, everything is infinite. All of a sudden I got it and I believed it. That's why I had hope. I didn't know what my hope was, but I just felt that there was more to the story than just what we were seeing in the news. I had hope. So that was 9/11. Now, here's the magic. So I'm dealing with things like everybody. My family is dealing with things like everybody. 9/11, September 12th, September 13th, September 14th. I go outside, and there's an azalea bush outside my front door. And for those of you who know anything about azaleas bloom in June prolifically, covered with flowers. You can barely see the leaves. The flowers fade, they crumble, they go into the dirt. And then you're left with a pretty decent looking green bush for the rest of the year. So it's kind of a pretty plant because it's multi-seasonal. So I go outside, wandering around. It's a gorgeous, sunny, warm day. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what the heck fell? Something red fell onto one of my bushes. And I was thinking, you know, like how people release balloons, right? So I'm thinking it was a little helium balloon, you know, latex one, and it went up, and when it came back down, it was a little shriveled up bit of red, and it just kind of landed in that bush. So I go over to investigate it, and I look at it, and it's one azalea flower. One. And I knew, and I'm even getting the chills about it now when I think about it, I knew that that was magic or a miracle. I knew that it felt like the universe had co-orchestrated that one bud and that one flower to appear and to develop so out of season for me to understand that the idea that I felt hope and the idea that I knew that there was more to our existence here was truthful. It felt like the exclamation point. If we, the universe, can give this to you a couple of days after 9/11, maybe you're not imagining life as fully as you should be. Maybe you're not understanding it. Because this is the magic that underlies everything that it is that happens. So can you think about a troubled time? Can you think about when you saw a miracle like that at exactly the right moment? Just raise your hand if you can think of something like that happening in your life. So that's magic. And that's the magic that separates us from living a dull existence, from living in pessimism, to living in optimism. So the rest of today, what we're going to talk about is what to do with this idea of magic. How do you bring it in? How do you bring it in personally? Okay? So here's our strategy. First thing we're going to understand is to make room for magic, you have to prepare your canvas for it. In all of the years I've been doing this, I listen to guides talk very, very frequently about the metaphor of life being a beautiful painting. And I think it's an appropriate metaphor because if you look at a white blank canvas and then you see yourself as the one with the paintbrush and the colors and the limitlessness, there are no boundaries. If you see yourself as that one that's going to paint this image into anything that it is that you want it to be, you can see that we are creating our own reality through the metaphor of that image. So that canvas, I'm going to stop for a second. So that canvas is a way to understand what it is that we're doing here. We're taking our thoughts, we're taking our feelings, we're taking our beliefs, and we're taking our actions based on what we're thinking and feeling and believing. And that's what we're using as our tools to paint the white canvas. And if you change what you are thinking, if you change what you are feeling, if you change what you are believing, if you're not happy with what the painting looks like, and then you change the actions that you take based on what you're thinking and feeling and believing, you're changing what you're painting. You're changing the colors, you're changing the tools, you're changing the vibrancy, you're changing all of the elements of how you are creating your canvas of reality simply by shifting the energy of what you're thinking, feeling, and believing and the actions that you take based on what you think and feel and believe. So I like that metaphor of painting a canvas. And I know sometimes I would think, well, if this is my canvas, isn't it finite because it's a square and it has a border? Well, first of all, your canvas can be any size that you want. Your canvas can wrap the globe 3 or 4 times if you'd like it to. The canvas is only limited to your imagination. But not only that, but even though the canvas looks two-dimensional, it's really not. It's not two-dimensional. Because if I don't like what I did right here, I can either erase it, or I could just take a different medium and go over it and change it. So I'm going to make a better smile face now. And now I just changed it. So it's not at all finite. If I was using paint, is that one better, Sarah? It is? It is, right? I'll show you how I used to draw happy faces when I was a kid. That's how I always drew them when I was a kid. And that's when the teacher would, come down the aisle. Karen. Pay attention, Karen. You should see that in my book. Looks like a baby. That's how my babies always look. No hair. They're all bald. So maybe that's what it was. I was intuitive when I was a kid. I was drawing portraits of my future children. Where was I? Yeah, they were happy. They're still happy, those little babies. So your canvas is not limited. If you don't feel like expanding here or expanding there or imagining it getting bigger, you can just keep building out this way. You can throw so much paint on that you can barely see what was underneath at the beginning. You don't even see it anymore. You just keep building and building and building. The other thing that I like about this metaphor is that, do you guys know the optical images that are made from hundreds and thousands of little photographs, right? And you look at it, it's Mona Lisa or something. And then when you zoom in, it's like, this is a photograph of a beach. This is a photograph of a horse. This is a photograph of that. And some brilliant person took all of these photographs and painted with all of these images. So the nice thing about this metaphor is that it allows you to see how your image from this earthlight fits into the canvas of your eternal reality. So not only are you painting this canvas, but you're painting when you're in the energy realm, on other earth lives, painting and painting and painting, and putting all of those canvases next to each other to create the whole of your being. And then it gets even better. Zoom out a little bit more, and your canvas of your existence, your canvas of your soul's reality, is just one slice in the canvas of everyone's soul's reality. So the beauty of existence itself is comprised of every stroke, every mark, every drawing on every person's canvas, every soul's canvas, by every thought, feeling, belief, and action that they had taken since the inception of their souls. And that is a beautiful drawing or painting or canvas. So, if you don't like what your canvas looks like right now, you just have to change it. That's all there is to it. One of my favorite mediums, not the Long Island medium, one of my favorite mediums in art is watercolors. I'm not good at it, but I really like it. And I like it because I think it's beautiful and luminescent. Like there's a lot of light in it. It's not murky. But one of the reasons I'm bad at it is because you can't undo watercolor very easily. You know, if you want to leave a white space, you have to leave the white space from the very beginning. There's no such thing as white paint when you're watercolor painting. So you kind of have only one shot at the white, right? And then the other stuff, you might be like, I I don't really like the way that looks. You could add a little deepening of color, but you can never lighten it. You can never make it less. It's always going to be more. And I think that's probably one of the reasons watercolor painting is so challenging to me, because I'm constantly throwing stuff on my canvas. I'm constantly changing things. I'm constantly adding new colors. How colorful my life is becomes the, oh gosh, I'm sorry. This is so you pay attention to the words and not the colors, okay? So how colorful my life is, you know, I travel a lot on business, and you know how hotels look, right? They're all gray, or all brown, or all beige, right? So you spend a few days in a hotel room, right, Don? And then I come home, and I walk into my house, and I'm like, whoa! There's an orange room, and a yellow room, and there's a blue room, and the house has just got colors all over it. And that's how I know that I'm always painting my reality. That's why I'm not great with watercolors. But you can also do that. So the first thing to do is to pay attention to what you're putting on your canvas. Whatever you put on your canvas today is the thing that's going to be most visible. That's going to be the energy that's intersecting with all that can happen to you, all that you can bring in. All that you create is going to be what you are drawing on that canvas right now. So let's start out by saying, I'd like to get the negative portion of the journey over with. So let's start out with, let's not put certain things on our canvas. Okay? Let's just start out with that. Get all the negativity over with. What do we want to avoid putting on our canvas? Anyone have any suggestions?
Fear.
Fear! Yes. So, I'm going to not put any fear on my canvas. Did everyone see that?
Yeah.
Can you see that? Can you guys see that in the back?
No.
Do I have to write it a little bit bigger?
No. That's good. Fade it away.
All right. What else do I not want to put on my canvas?
Doubt.
Doubt. Totally. Totally. Doubt. Doubt. Let me write that here too. What about anything else? Insecurities. This I'll write it a little bit bigger. Can you see that? Did I? Oh, you're right. I did. Anger. Guilt. Oh. Oh. Hate that. Hate that. Hate that. Hate that.
Shame.
Shame. Who said shame? Shame. Shame is possibly one of the most insidious emotions that we can experience. It's amazing. Think about that for a second. You can feel anger toward another person. You can feel disappointment to another person. You can activate this whole idea of forgiveness, finding the benefits in it, loving that other person, talking to the other person's higher self. You can do all this stuff. You can journal about it. You can let go of the energy. You can do all this stuff, and you can move past it or lessen its effect on you. But shame, oh, gosh, that one's a killer because it's all on the inside of you. It siphons off your feeling of worth. It siphons off your ability to believe that you have the right to happiness or joy or a great relationship or abundance. It just makes you feel small and shriveled up and insignificant. So shame, definitely, we don't want that on our canvas. Anything else?
Attack.
Huh?
Attack.
Yes. Yes, most definitely. Huh? Judgment. Judgment. Judgment without the E in it. If you're in Europe, by the way, in England, judgment has the E in it. Just fun fact. Okay. All right. So just thought you'd want to know that. Yes, but what all of these words have in common They're all coming from a place of negativity. They're all coming from living below the line. They're all coming from being in a space where we're encumbered by what we're taught or what we experience as humans, not tapping into what we know as a soul. It's all the stuff of earth. It's all the stuff that we're dragging around with us. So it's easy to say, let's get rid of the anger and the fear. Let's get rid of the shame. Let's get rid of the guilt. It's easy for us to say that. But what are some of the things that we can do to prevent ourselves from continuing to paint the canvas with any of those emotions, with any of that stuff? Number one, don't watch the news. Come on. I know, I remember my 7th grade social studies teacher. You got to read the newspaper every day, bring a current article into school with you the next day, write a 1-paragraph summary of what's going on in current events, and every day you'd come in and pick a few people to take out their article and read it and tell what your summary was, because we were good people. We were aware. We knew what was going on in the world. But you know what? You don't have to watch the news. You don't have to immerse yourself in negative stories to know what's going on. If there's anything going on in the world that you would benefit from knowing, because of how connected we are today, it's going to come to you. You're going to find out about it. You know, what was the last big story that you didn't hear about within hours or within a day? We are all connected. Information gets to you very quickly. You don't have to seek it out. I had a client that wanted to do an emergency session with me the Monday after the Paris shootings. And, you know, she said, I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm just in such a bad state. And her state was becoming worse because she was beating herself up for what a bad state she was in. She didn't feel like she could use the knowledge that she had gained over years to get herself out of that reflection. So we do our session. Luckily, I'm intuitive, so I don't have to, you know, do too much to figure out what's going on. It occurred to me she's been watching the news since Friday. Every little story, every person interviewed, every image, she's just been watching it. I felt like I could charge her for the hour, but we're going to be done in 2 minutes. Turn the TV off. That's it. Just turn the freaking TV off. All right? Turn it off. What you focus on is what you are painting your reality with. That's why you feel awful. Doesn't mean I'm not compassionate. No, of course it doesn't mean I'm not compassionate. I know what happened. I know that it has happened. I can't change it. Not yet. We're still kind of working on my time machine. And I got to change the batteries in my magic wand. So we can't change it yet. It has happened. So now that it has happened, what are you going to do about it by immersing yourself in all of that imagery and negativity and debating and fear and assaulting, all this stuff? What are you going to do with it? Where's it going? Where's it going? It's like pouring chemicals into your body, and your liver's like, just stop. There's only so much of this stuff I can get out. Stop pouring the toxins in by paying attention to what you're doing on the outside. Pay attention to what you're focusing on. Now, we all have an ability to have an effect on the world that we live in. So there's going to be certain stories, there's going to be certain things that are going on in the world around us that we want to participate in, that we want to make a difference in. If you knew the story and you knew whatever group of people were affected by it, if you're passionate about making a difference specifically toward that target, You can do it without the details. You can take action without saturating yourself in the negativity. You can do so without feeling disempowered. You can do so by saying, this is what it is. What can I contribute to make this better? Take yourself to a place where, all right, what can we do from here? This is what it is. What can we do from here? And then do it. If you want to make a donation, if you want to take a sabbatical and fly to the other side of the world, if you want to orchestrate a vigil, if you want to start a meditation group for peace on Facebook, if you want to change your profile to support a different region, whatever it is, you can take action without knowing any more of the details than you already know. So think about what we can do with this stuff as a catalyst to where we want to go, not as a place to drag you down under with it. I have a client that she does sessions on a weekly basis, and she's growing more quickly than I usually can see a client grow, to the point that I started working with her, and then I would go to events in the city that she lives in, and I know a bunch of people in that area, and people would come up to me and they'd be like, I can't believe how much she's changed. We're all asking her, what are you doing that's so different? Everything about her whole being is different. It's that she's taking off these masks and layers so quickly that she's becoming the happy soul that she was born to be. But her guides brought up something. She has, I'll give you a true story, because I don't know that anybody in this room knows her. So I'll give you a story that you can probably identify with. She has a outwardly very, very successful brother. He's made tons of money, more money than we can count, and he's respected for the work that he's done. But he's also an alcoholic, and he's had a really tough few decades with the alcohol. So let's give my client a name. Give me your name.
Eddie.
Eddie. Eddie is adorable. Eddie is adorable. Oh, Edie? Edie. That was great, Eddie. I love you.
Just like your soul.
Good.
Yeah.
Love you. Why don't we call her Sam? We can go either way with that, right? All right. So Sam. Sam has done everything that she can think to do, and a lot of very successful things she's done. And a lot of the times that we're doing sessions, we talk about her brother. Suggestions are made from guides to help her to help him. But the other part of what it is that we focus on is for her to really recognize and understand that she's responsible for her happiness. She's not responsible for his happiness. You know, once a person matures, at least to adulthood, they're responsible for their own happiness. How they paint their canvas of reality is up to them. That's the cold, hard truth. Everyone's responsible for their own happiness. You can come over and try to paint with them, but if they're not in the mood for you to paint on their canvas, they're going to pick up something and smear right over what you just painted on their canvas. Or they're going to have color blindness, right, Don? And they're not going to be able to see what you painted on their canvas. Do you like my pretty dress? What color is it? And the only reason I can say this is because I love his wife, and he one time, I think, brought home like an olive car, didn't you? So
Green cars.
Okay, green cars. Nobody wants a... So you can't paint someone else's canvas unless they're engaged in allowing you to paint their canvas. They have to be willing. And the interesting thing is that last week or the week before, an analogy came up for her that drove this fact home, because she's been struggling with the fact that she seems to be doing less and less for him because he's not accepting her help. And the analogy was a well. If someone falls in a well, is your best option to jump into the well with them? Who would do that? That's gross. There's like spiders and bugs and muck down there, you know? Don't go down the well. It's disgusting. But if you stay on the surface, you can get help. You can work and work no matter how long it takes to help find a way to get that person out of the well. You can throw a ladder. You can bring in other people that are going to help you brainstorm fantastic ideas. You can send down food. You can send down water. You can do lots and lots and lots and lots of things by staying on the surface. But if you jump into the well with them, you're both damned. As I saw somebody mouth, you're both. And that's what this is like. If you immerse yourself in the negativity of the stuff that's going on around you, you're jumping into the damn well. Don't jump into the well. So turn off the news. This extends farther because we're not always getting our news from just the television or the newspaper anymore. So it extends farther than that. There's other ways that you want to not saturate yourself with other negativity that's out there. And I'll talk to you about something that seems to be a little bit hot right now because we have a presidential election. And that is debating others about what's best for our country. Okay? Unfortunately, the majority of debating others about what's best for our country doesn't come by saying, this is what I would like to see in our country. This is what I would like to see us create and to build and to do and to vision. Where do most debates go? He's an ass and you're an ass for liking him or her. That's where it goes. Not only do I not like your candidate, I don't like your ideas in liking the candidate, therefore, I don't like you very much either. That's where the debating goes. And how does it make you feel when you have that debate? It doesn't make you feel empowered. It doesn't make you feel hopeful. It doesn't make you feel good about the future. It makes you feel crummy. You feel crummy. You feel crummy and angry and frustrated, and you feel fear because if their candidate gets elected, they're going to be the destruction of America. So don't debate people in a negative way. If someone has strong ideas about what it is that they want in a candidate, you really think you're going to be able to go to what you're seeing as a blank canvas? You think you're going to be able to go over and write on their blank canvas? You guys can you read this out loud for me? You guys got that? No? You can't? Can you see it in the back? No? All right. That when you're going back and forth with someone on Facebook, that's exactly what you're freaking doing. The only thing that's going to show up on the canvas is what they write, not what you write. Right? Okay. If you want to make a difference, the best that you can offer, if you haven't been invited into the conversation, meaning that someone hasn't said, Jess, what do you think of Trump? If someone doesn't say to you, Jess, what do you think of Trump? You haven't been invited in. Okay? Unless you have the same opinion as the person that's writing things or stating things. Then you've been invited in by being on the inside club. If your opinion is different, you have not been invited in until the person comes to you and invites you in. If you're invited in, there's a small possibility that that individual is going to have an open mind and listen listen to some of the things that you're saying, but it's just a small possibility. And if they give you that small possibility, by making a statement in public, on Facebook, for example, they gave you that small window of inviting you in, just make a statement that's not critical, but that's more visionary, that's more seeing where we can go. You're not criticizing the writer, but you're giving a possibility that maybe somebody can think about. I mean, what would I write? I see us all as one. We are all connected. Yeah, that would be very helpful. Very helpful. But you can write something a little bit visionary, a little bit hopeful, without putting the other person down. So don't debate people that don't invite you in if you're not sharing their opinions. And don't saturate yourself in your opinions if they don't agree with you. Focus on what you want. Focus on what kind of candidate you want to see. Focus on looking beyond even who we suppose are our only choices. There's always more choices. Why are we so conditioned to believe that what the media shows us is the only opportunity out there? That's not right. There's more out there. So focus where you want to focus. Even if you find someone that you would like to be the president, and you think that that person is completely unelectable simply because of money and popularity and blah, 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 still focus on that candidate. Because when you're looking at the qualities of that candidate that you like and you prefer, you're putting the energy into the universe of the vision you would like to create for our reality. So you can still focus in a place that's positive instead of focusing in a place that's negative. That's how you keep this gross stuff off your canvas. Let's take that a little bit further. If you are not debating and going to the negative space, when you do come across people that don't share your ideas, or they're not imagining a future that you're imagining, or people that are just plain asleep, this is a little bit hard to do, but it's worth the effort. You can dislike their ideas. You can dislike their actions. You can dislike what they focus on, but don't hate the person. That hate vibration is going to bounce right back to you. There's such an enormous variety in this world. Any thought that could be thunk has been thunk. And not a lot of them are going to agree with yours. Not the majority of them are going to agree with yours. There's just not enough room to focus hatred toward anyone that's holding ideas that are different than your ideas. You look forward. You look at your path. You walk your walk. You expand your walk. You keep living awake. You keep making your choices. But don't hate the people that aren't living the way that you are living. You can disagree with an idea, but don't hate the deliverer or the holder of the idea. I remember quite some time ago, this was a topic that came up in an Enlightenment Power Group one month. I don't remember how many years ago it was. It must have been 4 years ago, because it was during the presidential election year again. And it's actually become more exacerbated now than it was 4 years ago. But basically, the stalemate that we have in Washington is because people hate the people with the ideas. They're not just hating the ideas. They're hating the people with the ideas, which means that they're not able to discuss things. They're not able to brainstorm with one another. They're not able to imagine with one another. They're not able to compromise because they've decided to just feel hatred for the opposing party. Even the word opposing is very telling. So it's okay. There's all kinds of ideas out there. You focus on the ideas that make your heart sing. What time is it?
2:35.
2:30 what?
3.
Okay. I need to lose that. And I really apologize if the sun sets and then you guys get hungry and it's breakfast time and someone tells me it's 6, and I think it's 6 today, but it's actually 6 in the morning. Every now, just someone just take a paper airplane and just like toss it at me at some point, so I kind of remember time again. But it is 2:30. I'm going to leave you with the thought about ways to clear your canvas. I want you to take a break, mix, mingle, have a cup of coffee, have some vegetables or snacks, have some water, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Sound good?
Yeah.
You made the long too. I can't get enough. You're going to be the first person to get to see how different it is. One more finish people I love. You know? Love it. Yeah. Are you a striker? Yes, I'm a striker. Yay.